Michael Shikha Niketan Higher Secondary Government Sponsored Co-ed English Medium School has taken an excellent initiative of teaching and make our students learn day-to-day lessons through audio and video in our YouTube channel. Teachers of all the subjects are working hard to enhance these online classes in the midst of this pandemic situation. It is a request to all the teachers, students and guardians to click the bell icon and subscribe our channel.
We are going to start today with the absorption of root for class 9. So, for the absorption of root, also known as transportations of water or solvent from the soil, will be studied today. Okay. So, the absorption of root are carried by xylem and phloem. But the thing is, xylem only carries the water from the root and phloem does what? Phloem carries the food prepared by the leaves from the leaves to different various parts of the plant. Xylem is unidirectional while phloem is bidirectional. So, for the movement, for the transportation of the water in xylem, there are two types of transportation. Number one is passive transport. So, what happens in passive transport? In passive transport, the molecules move freely from their region of higher concentration to their region of lower concentration. There is nothing needed, there is no energy needed, it moves freely, spontaneously. And the next part which we will be studying later, that is the active transport. In active transport happens what? Here exactly opposite things of passive transport happens. Here the molecules move from lower concentration to its region of higher concentration. But how will it move from lower to higher? It will need energy in the form of ATP from the cell. So, but before we are going to discuss about passive transport. Passive transport is again divided into two parts. One is diffusion and the next one is osmosis. What happens in diffusion? In diffusion, the movement of molecule happens from its region of higher concentration to its region of lower concentration, but there is no membrane are present. They move freely. They move freely until and unless both the concentration becomes equal. It happens in water and in gas. Both the water and gas are having this diffusion. The next one is osmosis. The osmosis occurs only in water. So, what happens in osmosis? In osmosis, the water moves from its region of higher concentration to its region of lower concentration. Means in higher concentration means it will be more dilute. It will be moving from its region of dilute concentration to its region of concentrated concentration. What is dilute? Means having a lot of pure water, and concentrated, the amount of pure water is much less. But in this movement, what will happen? There will be a semi-permeable membrane. So, the water is going to move from the region of higher to lower through a semi-permeable membrane. Okay. So, this is a diagram which I have drawn for you. So, this is a semi-permeable membrane. These black dots are the water content and these red dots are the sugar particles. So, what are these? These are solvent, and what are these? These are solute. So, what is happening? Here is more dilute and here it is less dilute. So, what will happen? The water content will move from its region of higher concentration to its region of lower concentration. But the same cannot be occurred, the same cannot happen with the sugar molecules. They can't move across the semi-permeable membrane because the pores are very much smaller for them to move. Okay. So, next we are going to classify the osmosis upon the solutions surrounding them by two. They are going to be classified as two types. One is endoosmosis and the next one is exoosmosis. What happens in endoosmosis? As a name, endo, it means enter. So here what happens? Water enters the soil. Sorry, the water enters the cell. Water is going to enter the cell and the cell will become turgid and the cell will swell and the cell swells. And the next one, exo. Exo means exit. So what happens in exoosmosis? The water goes out. The water will go away from the cell, for which the cell will become placid. Here the cell will become turgid. Here the cell becomes turgid. But here in exoosmosis the cell will shrink. The cell shrinks and the cell will become flaccid. Flaccid means shrinkage. Okay. So these two you are going to remember. Next, osmotic pressure. What is osmotic pressure? Osmotic pressure means the minimum pressure that is exerted by the cell so that the pure solvent cannot enter. What happens if the water constantly enters the cell may burst. It will be bad for the cell, so there should have a pressure to prevent this. That one is osmotic pressure. So the minimum pressure that after which the water cannot enter the cell through a semi-permeable membrane is called osmotic pressure. Osmotic pressure is equal to turgor pressure. What is turgor pressure? What happens when the water enters the cell swells up. Suppose this is a cell, constant water is entering, for which the cell is swelling up. Now what happens? The cell swells up and become rigid or turgid. So what happens after it becomes turgid? It will exert pressure on the cell membrane. It will exert a pressure on the cell membrane. This pressure is known as turgor pressure. So we can say that osmotic pressure is equal to turgor pressure. Turgidity. The opposite of turgidity is known as flaccidity. But there is one term which you should remember is plasmolysis. What is plasmolysis of water? Plasmolysis of water means when the water is withdrawn from the cell, it becomes flaccid. So the withdrawal of the water from the cell, this term is known as plasmolysis of water. Let me give you one example. Suppose you have bought a lot of meat and you are going to cook that meat in the next day, not on that day on which you have bought. You are going to cook it on the next day. So what you are going to do, what your mother is going to do? She is going to cover the meat with salt. Why salt is used? Because when the bacteria sits on the meat, what will happen? Because the salt content is more, so it means the water is less, very less. So what happens? Exoosmosis will happen. Exoosmosis means the water is going to get away from the body, from the body of the bacteria, and the bacteria will shrink and die. So this is plasmolysis of water. Let me give you an example of the turgidity, the turgid property of the water. What happens if you suppose you have bought raisins, the Bengali name raisins you know. So the raisins you have bought and you have placed the raisins in a dish, and after some time what you are going to do? You are going to pour some water on that raisins and you are going to leave it for some time. After coming, you are going to see that each and every raisin is swelled up. The raisin have been swelled. Why the raisin have swelled? Because of endoosmosis and the semi-permeable membrane of the raisins. The water is coming inside and is swelling it up. That is endoosmosis. And this is an example of endoosmosis. So if you are being told to give example of both the types of osmosis, you may give these two examples. Next, the next one we are going to discuss about the 3 types of solution. So there are basically 3 types of solution. Number 1 is isotonic, number 2 is hypotonic, and number 3 is hypertonic. What happens in isotonic? Here the water and the solute content are equal. So there will be no osmosis. So water content and the solute content across the membrane, since it is equal, it will have no osmosis. Here no osmosis will take place. What happened in hypotonic? Here the solution outside the cell, here solution outside the cell has very low content, very low amount of solute, means solvent is much more than the cell. What will happen? The solvent will enter, the cell, and the cell will swell up, so here water enters, and what happens here? Here endoosmosis happens. And the third one is hypertonic. What happens in hypertonic solution? Here the water content outside the cell has a very high content, high amount of solute, which means solvent is much lesser. What will happen? The solvent inside the cell will go away. The water will exit from the cell. So the water exits, and the type of osmosis happens here is exoosmosis. So you have to remember all the three types of solution. Next, we have started with passive transport of the water movement or in xylem. The next one is active transport. What happens is active transport, just as I have told earlier. Here the content, the solvent will come from its lower concentration, then it will go to higher concentration. Normally what happens, it goes from its higher to a lower concentration, but here opposite happens. Here the solvent content will come from its lower concentration, and then it will move to its higher concentration, for which what is needed? Energy. The cell is giving energy to do this type of transport. Where does it happen? Why does it happen? It happens in root, obviously. Why it happens in the root? There are in the soil there are large number of nutrients present, like they are potassium, they are sodium, and they are calcium, magnesium. All these kind of nutrients are present inside the soil. But in the root, the nutrient content is more. Why? To keep up the process of osmosis, because without it the water will not enter. The water enters from higher to lower. So the plant have to keep the water content inside the root much lower, so that the water can be transported, absorbed easily through osmosis. So since inside the root the nutrient content is much more than in the soil, it is impossible for the soil to take away the nutrient from the root easily. So the root is going to take the nutrients from the soil forcibly. Forcibly how? With the use of energy. It will give the energy and forcibly take away the nutrient from the soil. And this type of movement of nutrient is known as active transport. We are going to study about ascent of sap. So before that, what is sap? Sap means the water that the root is taking from the soil isn't pure. It is mixed up with various minerals. So it will be termed as sap. So the sap is moved from the root through the stems to the leaves. So this movement, this ascending movement is known as ascent of sap. It mainly occurs where? Obviously in the xylem. In the xylem vessel known as tracheids, it occurs there. So for the mechanism of the ascent of sap, there are two theories. One is the root pressure theory, and the next one is cohesion, tension and transpiration pull. So in root pressure theory, what happens? The root is taking up a lot of water, and for which it is making a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure is made for the sap to be pushed from the root through the trachea. So this pressure theory, this pressure is known as root pressure theory. And the next one is the cohesion tension transpiration pool. What happens in cohesion tension? Here the water has a unique characteristic. It has a unique property. So what property of water is there? That is the cohesion and adhesion. In the cohesion, the water molecules are attached with each other. They are attached with each other and have a strong hydrogen bond which attracts both the molecules of water. And in the adhesion, what happens? The water is attached to the xylem. That is the trachea part of the xylem. The water is attached. So here, the attachment is so strong, it will create a continuous column of water. Since the attachment of the water is so strong because of the cohesion and adhesion, it will create a continuous column of water, and for which this column is risen up by transpiration pool. When transpiration occurs, a lot of water vapor is going away from the aerial surface of the plant. Then what happens? When the water vapors are going, the water column, it is pulled by it. The transpiration is pulling the water column. So these 3 points you have to study in this theory named cohesion, tension and transpiration pool. And the last one of this transportation system of water by the root is the phloem transportation. All the transport we have studied, diffusion, osmosis and everything, these are under the xylem transportation, how the water is taken from the soil. Now we are going to study how the food is taken from the phloem. What happens? So there are two names which you have to study, which you have to remember. That one is source and sink. What is source? Source means the leaves are making a lot of food. So it is a source. It's a source of the solvent. I mean the food that is made. Then the source is going to various organs of the plant. It is going to the stems, it is going to the roots and various parts. So the various part it is going is known as sink. But the function of both the source and sink may be reversed. Suppose there is a dull day, so the plant is unable to photosynthesize. So what will happen? The sink, suppose the sink where the food have been stored, it will become the source, and the source, which are the leaves, since they are unable to make the food, becomes the sink. So this thing is reversible. Which we are going to study today is transpiration. So what is transpiration? Transpiration means a loss of water in the form of water vapor from the leaves and other aerial parts. Why the transpiration occurs? Because if the roots takes up excess water, it is not using all the water content. It is using a part of it and the rest are thrown away. So how is going to throw? It's not going to throw in buckets. It's going to transpire it. It is going to transform the water into water vapor, and the water vapor is then released. How will the water vapor release from the plant? In 3 parts. In the 3 organs. Number 1 is stomata. The stomata is present, it is present on the leaves. So from leaves, from the stomata, the water vapor is going to go away. The next one is lenticel. In lenticel, the lenticels are present on the stem. So from those pores on the stem, the water vapor is going to go. And the third one is the cuticular part. The cuticular part means the leaves are having a cuticular membrane. So from that cuticular membrane, what transpiration occurs. So what are the factors on which transpiration is dependent on? Number 1, the 4 factors are given. Number 1 is temperature. More the temperature occurs, the higher amount of transpiration occurs. Why? The temperature is more. Suppose temperature increases, for which the humidity, the water vapor contained in the air, that is known as humidity. The humidity is lower up, it decreases due to increase in temperature. Since the humidity decreases, transpiration will occur more. So increase in temperature will increase in the rate of transpiration. Next one is humidity. More humid the air is, less transpiration will occur. You will see in rainy season, transpiration rate is very much lower, because in rainy season a lot of water vapor is present in the air. So that is the reason why plant cannot give the water vapor from its own body. So more the humidity, less the rate of transpiration. Next one, wind. More the wind occurs, it will take away all the humid airs. It will take away all the whatever contained in the air. So what happened? This place, the place will be free up, and in there transpiration will occur. So more the wind, more the rate of transpiration. And last one is light. So we all know that water vapor is coming out from the stomata, and we also know that the stomata opens only at daytime, not in the night time. So the rate of transpiration obviously will be increased or happen more during the daytime but not in the night time. And next you are going to study about the difference between transpiration and evaporation. Both the processes are almost same. Water vapor is going away from the body, but somehow both are different. How? Number one is a physiological process. It will occur in the living cells, and it occurs is a physical process. It occurs in living cell, but it also occurs in the non-living cells as well. Number two, this is a very slow movement. The water is transpiring very slowly. In respect of this, evaporation is much faster. Next, it occurs on the green leaves of land plants. Only. And while evaporation can occur in any exposed surface area of both living and non-living things. So these are the differences which you need to remember. Next, what are the disadvantage and advantage of transpiration? Let's start with the advantage part. So transpiration will help in the ascent of sap. Just now we have studied about this thing. What is ascent of sap, how transpiration pool is occurring, is helping the ascent of sap. So next one is the removal of excess water. So which we have earlier, we have just now told that the root is gathering a lot of water, but the plant is not using all the amount of water. It is using a part of it. So the excess water is removed. Number three, it helps in the passive absorption of water. It helps in the absorption of water from the roots. Next, it helps in the maintaining of turgidity. The cell remains turgid because of the transpiration. If the cell is not turgid, it will not divide. It will not do its main functions. It may die as well. Next, the last one is the cooling effect. Thus, when the water is going away in the form of water vapor, it is taking away the heat as well. So while it is taking away heat, it is maintaining a cooling effect to the plant. Now we are going to study about the disadvantage of the transpiration. Number one, it reduces the growth of plant. If transpiration rate is very high, the rate of growth in the plant will be reduced. Next, it will cause wilting. You have seen this, many plants are shrinking, many plants are bending when there is a lot of hotness, mainly in summer season. Why this occurs? Because the water vapor is transpired more, the transpiration rate is more than needed. So the plant wilts. That is bad for the plant, because if it continues to be wilted, the plant may die. Next, the loss of energy. In transpiration, a lot of energy is given by the plant. So obviously there is a loss of energy due to transpiration. So by this we have completed this part of the plant. On the next part, we are going to discuss about the animal physiological aspects. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment. Subscribe. And do share the video among your friends.